Hello all, my name is Chris Haden. I'm the pastor at Kindred UMC.
Hi, I'm Courtney. I'm the director of community engagement at Kindred UMC.
And I'm Preston, and I like to see Chris squirm. I think it's the funniest thing.
And it's pretty fucking
So
funny.
to plug another podcast that they do, the Kindred Spirits podcast.
Oh,
with,
did you listen to Matt?
Yeah.
You listen to Port?
Oh
Yeah.
man, it was great.
It
So
was squirmy.
just a long story short, Mr. Four guy over here likes to hear himself talk and profess blah blah. That's why he's a pastor. And the other guy there, Matt, is the same thing as Courtney is. So they're good. Yeah, they're good listeners and like to listen just to listen. So Chris just went on and on and on until he caught himself, stopped himself
multiple times,
3 or 4 times. Yeah,
just constantly was like, I don't know. Can you guys say some shit, maybe?
Can you guys talk?
Yeah, no, they both
one.
looked at me with their big, giant doe eyes, just like two
like,
Bambies,
yeah.
just two baby deer, just How did that feel? Yeah, it is squirmy for sure. I highly recommend it, and I was wildly uncomfortable with it.
That makes sense to me.
So welcome once again to the pre-recorded live show for Kindred UMC. We are kicking off brand new series, and this one we're going to talk about Advent, like the Christmas story.
Sweet.
Which
Cool.
And so in the church we always call this season it's weird. Nobody actually thinks of it this way, but the right before December 25th, it's the season of Advent, which is Advent just means like coming, like somebody's arrival.
It's Latin.
Yeah, I guess, I presume. But Advent is the season of like preparing for the arrival of the Christ, and then the Christmas season is the 12 days of Christmas, which goes from December 25th on. And that's where we get the old song, the 12 days of Christmas. 5 golden rings.
Yeah, I don't like that part either, dog.
Yeah, that's everyone's favorite part.
No, it's not.
That's Eddie Izzard bit. People come in from the other room. 5 golden rings.
Shut up, Myrtle. I'm watching your show.
4 photographs, 3 blonde wigs, 2
Those are not the words.
nostril plugs, and and then the other part we know, and a partridge, and nobody knows the rest of it.
There it is.
Nobody knows the
4
rest
falling
of it.
birds, 3 French hens, 2 turtle doves.
For
Fucking
what?
nerd.
And a
For what?
partridge and a
Wait, go back.
For what birds?
What were they?
For
Did you say falling birds?
That's what she said.
Is it a hunter's version of
That's what.
the Chris?
4 falling birds.
Yay!
After you shoot them.
what?
After you shoot them. Bunk.
Wait, I gotta look it up now.
calling.
No, don't look it up. I want
gotta know
to. I
what
want
it
to get it. No,
It's calling birds.
don't look it up.
Go ahead and guess. I'm looking
It's
it up.
calling birds.
I was close enough.
I am telling you. Well, you
I was
know,
closer than you.
it was a totally different word, but whatever.
Is it calling? It doesn't scratch.
calling.
Yes, it
birds.
is.
It's calling birds.
4 calling birds, 3 French hens, 2
2 turtle doves.
I got the rest of it.
Yeah. What's 6? I know, like Lords of Dancing,
7 swans a swimming, 6
ladies.
ladies. No.
You had it.
7 swans a swimming, 6 geese a laying.
Yeah.
Slaying. That's what it is.
A lot of birds.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah.
with the
Lots
birds?
of birds. Well, I mean, they're easy to catch, I guess.
I had to think about it.
So it is all about food. That's all it is.
So we are going to start our Advent series, and we're going to kind of take a traditional approach in a non-traditional way. We're going to look at the Gospel of Luke primarily, because the Gospel of Luke, so there's 4, all right, this background. There's 4 different Gospels. The Gospel of Mark, which is the one that was written first, and even that one was probably written decades after everything happened. And then the Gospels of Luke and Matthew. Matthew probably came after Mark. Luke came after that. And then John came much later. And we're talking, this all happened within, yet again, we had a recording issue. I don't know what the problem is. I've done everything I know how to do. It's a little frustrating. So the last thing I was saying was about the 4 Gospels. Mark is the first Gospel, the proto-Gospel. And then there's Matthew and Luke. And then John is kind of a real departure. And John was probably written even like 100 years after the events. And so to take these Gospels literally as though the disciples were there writing down what everything was happening is actually not, one, it's just simply not true. And secondly, makes it much more difficult to get at what is actually being said by the original writers. So a more accurate way to understand the Gospels is these are devout, scholarly, and Christian is not the right word because that wasn't even an understanding. They didn't have the word Christians. They were Jews who were followers of the way. They were like a denomination of Judaism that believed that Christ was the Hebrew Messiah that has been sent. So these people wouldn't consider themselves in a different religion. They are Jews who kind of have this sect. And the way to understand the Gospels is these are scholarly Jews who are followers of the way, who are kind of wrapping their arms around all of the theological stories that are being told within these love feast communities, which is kind of how that was what original worship was. They would meet in people's homes, they would share communion, and then they would basically worship and party at the same time, which is kind of why we've modeled our church in the way that we have. We've tried to do the same thing.
I like it.
Yeah. So, love feast combined with some biblical knowledge and some theological discussion, and that's kind of what we're trying to do. So the Gospels are written by people who are recording the church that evolves out of the death and resurrection of Jesus, not necessarily the people who were there when it happened, And so all of that to say, in Luke's Gospel, we get a birth story. We get a much more fleshed out telling of the events. And again, it's not that these events literally happened, but it's the stories that were being told about this Messiah figure that had cultural, religious, theological meaning to the people who heard them the first time. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at all those stories in Luke, and then we're actually going to borrow, there's one from Matthew to get into Joseph, but we'll deal with that when we get there. We're going to look at these stories not as literal tellings of you have to believe this or you're not a Christian, but instead we're going to look at them and ask, what the hell is actually being said here by the original writer? Why would you tell the story in this mythological way? And we're going to start with Luke, chapter 1, verses 5 through 24. 5 through 24. And I'm going to read from the NRSV, and also I'm going to make a change this week. Normally I put up on the screen the text. I'm just going to put the text. I'm going to copy and paste the text down in the description. So if you're like a visual person and you want to listen and read along, just scroll down. You can see the text, and I'll also put a link for Bible Gateway, is a pretty good site. That's what I usually use, and it'll just give you the text that I'm reading, or you can just listen along. And that's how we're going to do it from now on, because it will. As I said earlier, I'm having so many issues with audio recording that will be one less step that I have to worry about.
So bear in mind, we'll be taking notes like 80-year-old women. So don't yell at us.
We take notes every week.
My older people in the church just get those little community cards during the sermon. It's the funniest thing to me.
Actually, I don't have to do this anymore. I was literally visually cueing myself for the edit later.
I don't
have to do it anymore. I'm actually I'm a big proponent of learn how you learn. Learn how you learn. So if you're a visual person or a note taker, by all means take notes. If you're visual, read the text, and if you're auditory, just sit back and relax. And I'm gonna just use this magical instrument right here.
I knew you were going there. Please don't.
Okay, here we go. Luke chapter 1, we're going to start with verse 5. And this is about Zechariah. In the days of King Herod of Judea, there was a priest named Zechariah who belonged to the priestly order of Abijah. His wife was a descendant of Aaron, and her name was Elizabeth. So, okay, already thick cultural, historical stuff that nobody knows what the heck that means. Who's Herod? Who's Aaron? What does any of this mean?
Aaron is Arran?
Aaron.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Aaron.
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 That's right.
Yeah. So let's just pause here. So Aaron is the very first priest. This goes all the way back to first family stuff, crossing into the promised land. Here we are thousands of years later. Aaron is the first Hebrew priest anointed by Yahweh.
What was Moses' brother's name?
Aaron.
Okay. Not the same person.
It is the same person.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah. So Zechariah is a descendant of the first priest, which is a big deal. Now the text starts with in the time of King Herod. So kind of like Lord of the Rings, if you've ever watched Lord of the Rings, like there was this kind of attachment with the personality of the king and the how well off the land does. And so, or at least that was the belief and the understanding. And so they think about like King Solomon, King David, these amazing leaders who led them into prosperity and protection and amazing cooperation with the movement of the Holy Spirit, like all of this amazing stuff. Herod is a Roman puppet. He is not. He's the opposite of David, opposite of Solomon.
Sitting in the seat.
And beholden to the pagan rulers. And like Rome is the third empire to conquer. Like we've been through Assyrians, we've been through Babylonians, and now we have Romans. And they don't care, like this is just a city-state in their empire. And King Herod is a propped up king who is a puppet for the Roman government. So the idea that King and Herod are next to each other, like the original readers would scoff at that. The time of King Herod, what a joke. Like what a fucking like farce. Just like this aggressive, like fuck that guy, So like they're starting off with a bit of a joke, and maybe not joke, but an irony of King Herod. How dare you use the word king next to the name fucking Herod? It's like that kind of a feel. So in the time of King Herod, a priest from the descension of the first priest, Aaron, and he's going into the temple to perform his priestly duties. And that's where we're starting this story. Okay. Verse 6. And his wife Elizabeth. His wife Elizabeth is from the descension of Aaron. But like that's part. He's including that for a purpose to like tie that priestly connection to like this is the real deal.
This is heavy.
Yeah. So verse 6. Both of them were righteous before God, living blamelessly according to all the commandments and regulations of Yahweh, but they had no children. Unusual, shameful, embarrassing for an older couple to have no children.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, we're going to get there. But they had no children because Elizabeth was barren, and both were getting on in years. Once, when he was serving as priest before God, and his section was on duty, he was chosen by lot. Remember from Jonah, he was chosen randomly, and this was believed to be God's will, that they rolled dice, and it came down to him. So he was chosen by lot, according to the custom of the priesthood, to enter the sanctuary of Yahweh and offer incense. If you are impure in the presence of the tabernacle, this holy inner sanctuary, you would die. They would literally tie a rope to your foot, because if you were impure in the presence of Yahweh, you would drop dead and they would pull you out. At least that's as the story goes,
I mean, I'm scared now. I'm sure that's the whole gist.
So this is all like historical context to know how serious this is. This guy was chosen to bring sacrifice to Yahweh, and it's a life or death scenario. Okay? So
you said rolling lots for what? Marriage?
For which priest, because there's multiple priests, which one is selected to go in and perform this ritual? And the reason they did lots is because it's a life or death scenario. It's like a big fucking deal to do this, So he gets chosen, and he goes in to perform this ritual and make offerings to Yahweh. Verse 10. Now at the time of the incense offering, the whole assembly of the people was praying outside. So there's a gathered congregation. Then there appeared to him an angel of the Lord, standing at the right side of the altar of incense. When Zechariah saw him, he was terrified, and fear overwhelmed him. But the angel said to him, Do not be afraid, Zechariah, for your prayer has been heard. Your wife Elizabeth will bear you a son, and you will name him John. You will have joy and gladness, and many will rejoice at his birth, for he will be great in the sight of Yahweh. He must never drink wine or strong drink, even before his birth. He will be filled with the Holy Spirit. So, never drink wine. This is another cultural, historical piece that's lost. So we have a tendency to hear that and be like, oh yeah, drinking's bad, you shouldn't drink wine. That's not what it means. Priests would drink wine all the time. It was like a normal part of Hebrew culture. Jesus' first miracle is turning water into wine. It's part of the wedding feast. Wine is like a normal part of Hebrew Roman culture. Okay? The only time priests were not allowed to drink wine is when they're on duty. What this is actually saying is the son that's going to be born to you must never drink wine because he's always going to be on priestly duty for Yahweh. There's something special about this son. He's never off duty. He is a chosen one. And then later we're going to pull in some stuff from Elijah, which is also some historical cultural stuff. But this is one of the ones you've been waiting for. So he's tipping his hat towards something incredible that's about to happen. Okay? So, must never drink wine. Yet, verse 16, he will turn many of the people of Israel to Yahweh their God. With the spirit and power of Elijah, like I said, he will go before him to turn the hearts of parents to their children and the disobedient to the wisdom of the righteous, to make ready the people prepared for Yahweh. Zechariah said to the angel, how will I know that this is so? For I am an old man, and my wife is getting on in years. We lose something in translation here. He's not just saying, how will I know this is so? This is much more akin to someone saying, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it.
Right.
So an angel appears and says, God's about to do an amazing thing, and then Zechariah goes, yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. And then the angel responds. Verse 19. The angel replied, I am Gabriel. I stand in the presence of God, and I have been sent to speak to you and to bring you this good news. But now, because you did not believe my words, which will be fulfilled in their time, you will become mute, unable to speak, until the day that these things occur. So Zechariah expresses a severe amount of doubt, is bitter, is a little Jonah-esque, because we just finished Jonah. He's a little like, yeah, right. And then the angel smites him and is like, what did you just say to me?
Yeah, double down, bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, verse 21. Meanwhile, the people were waiting for Zechariah and wondered at his delay in the sanctuary. Because again, this is life or death. Is he okay? Do we need to drag him out by the ankle? Because, did he die? Did he say something impure and then die? 22. When he did come out, he could not speak to them, and they realized that he had seen a vision in the sanctuary. He kept motioning to them and remained unable to speak. When his time of service was ended, he went to his home. After those days, his wife Elizabeth conceived, and for 5 months she remained in seclusion. And she said, this is juxtaposed to Zechariah's response, she said, this is what Yahweh has done for me, when he looked favorably on me and took away the disgrace I have endured among my people. So, there's a lot of cultural stuff going on. Let's talk a little bit first about Elijah. So, the Jewish practice, in fact today, Jews today, when they practice Passover, leave an empty seat because there's a practice and a belief that one day Elijah will return. Elijah was a great prophet, and his return is supposed to signal kind of the next age, the new thing that Yahweh is doing. And so at Passover, Jews leave an empty seat so that Elijah, if he comes, has a place to sit and join in the meal. And the Passover meal should be noted, it's not Thanksgiving. It's not Christmas dinner. Every single element of that meal has deep spiritual significance. Like eating horseradish, bitter herbs, is supposed to remind Hebrew people of the bitterness endured under slavery in Egypt. Like every element of that meal is directly connected to the story and the spiritual significance of the Yahweh's interaction with the Hebrew people, with the God's people, you know. So leaving a seed open is a big deal, and there's still to this day the anticipation that Elijah's coming. And here this angel says, it's your son. Your son is tied and linked to the coming of Elijah. So it's a big, huge deal. And then also, like, we have these two different responses. So we have, like, Zechariah's response, which is, oh yeah? That's going to happen? Yeah, I'll believe it when I see it. And then we have Elizabeth's response, which is, thank God. At last, an end to suffering, an end to my shame. Thank God for what God is doing here.
My husband's a babbling idiot. Is really thank God.
There's nothing wrong with babbling idiots, all right? I take that personally, and I don't appreciate it.
As you should. Are we ready for?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
Let's get into it.
I'm full. Okay.
It's a thick text.
So we got through the A. I wrote 3 A's for Aaron here. Aaron is Moses' brother. That's
Yes.
a huge, like, lineal pull from this story. Mm-hmm. So, but that's Elizabeth's line if we're speaking in literalisms.
Yeah.
No children again. Call back to
First families.
Right. Call back to the first families thing, which is like a second.
Abram and Sarai.
Yeah.
Who become Abraham and Sarah.
Do they not know the story? Is that not passed down?
No, they know the story, but like,
what's going on?
Well, it happened thousands and thousands of years ago, and like,
really,
at this point, yeah, this happens in the BCE AD crossover, or sorry, I grew up at a bad time in history. It's BCE to CE. That's the current academic language. Before Common Era and Common Era, and it harkens back to BC AD, which used to be before Christ,
yeah,
and Agni Deo, which is the year of our Lord.
Right.
So academics were kind of just like, all right, this is how we understand it, but can we please get the religious shit out of here? Can we actually be academics? So they settled on, we'll use the same timing, but it's BCE and CE.
So this is John. So I'm forgetting. This is right before Jesus.
This is 1 AD.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
This is again, God, there's so much Eddie Izzard bits that come to me when I talk about this stuff. He talks about daylight savings time, you're like, oh fuck, I gotta change. And it was like that AD BC crossover is like, oh fuck, I need a new watch. I can't
so that begs the question of, if that's thousands of years ago and they maybe treat it like we're treating it now as a metaphor or a story or something to just kind of hearken to.
Who knows if those people were, they wouldn't have reacted. Who knows if those people are real? I think they would have believed very sincerely that those people are real.
Okay.
But they also wouldn't have taken the stories very literally.
Okay.
They would have been like, these are our ancestors of whom we recount the story. You know? And so there's a little bit more, they were a little bit more aware of mythology and a little less literal about some of it. But they absolutely would have believed in Abraham and Sarah. But the idea that this guy would have just been like, I can take your word for it. Or that, and again, because even this story, let's not take this story literally either.
Right.
So the idea that there was somebody in the room who was watching it and be like, Zechariah, come here. Can we get your quotes? What,
oh wait, you can't speak. So
yeah,
okay.
That wasn't happening. This is Luke's account attributing spiritual and theological significance to the arrival of Jesus the Christ.
Okay.
That's what this is. So whether or not it happened is not the right question. The question is, why did Luke write this story this way, and what is he trying to say about not just his, but the community's statement of theological truth about this Christ figure?
Well, I mean, if you dive into a writer's mind, writers will even pull from other writers too. Like newer writers now will pull from Mark Twain and other things, and just like, oh, I recognize that. That's a cool little jest that they use there that they probably got from somewhere else.
He's intentionally pairing the story of Zechariah and the birth of John. It's John the Baptist, by the way, which is like one of the key figures in the birth story. He's intentionally pairing John's birth, who was probably almost certainly a real historical figure. Like, and that's the important thing to acknowledge too, is like, even though I'm like, let's not take it too literally, let's also acknowledge the very historical realities of it too. John the Baptist was almost certainly a real person. Jesus was certainly a real person.
And this was 1900 years ago, so it's not way far back that we can't find records anymore because they're whatever. I mean, something's probably...
there's an enduring community that's lasted 2,000 years that insists that something happened. Yeah. And there's plenty of references in historical writings that there was a rabbi named Jesus. And actually his name... Anyway, I'll divert.
That's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Okay, so the parallel thing is a big writing trope here, if we're looking at it that way. Versus.
So what's he trying to say with the parallel?
It's scary as hell. Like it's human condition.
Maybe. I would harken. So like, what was going on with the story of Abram? Like, what do you remember? And not like the story, but like, what was the point of that story?
Well, it was go with the flow.
Okay.
I agree simple
with you.
Sense.
I'm asking it's unfair because I'm asking a leading question.
Well, you're not fair. That's just what it is. It's a human condition. We talked about
You're right about that.
But it is funny that the roles are kind of switched here. While Zechariah has the wherewithal to, what's this? And Abraham is like, cool, we'll do it.
Okay, I want to get into that because there's subversion there, and it's on purpose.
Okay.
But the first thing is, so like, Abram is the beginning of the Hebrew faith.
Right.
This is the moment when Yahweh establishes an enduring covenant relationship with a family that will grow into a nation that will become the Jewish people.
That's why they're in the book of Genesis, which means beginnings.
Yeah. Right,
and
beginnings.
It's always...
Okay, this is more what I was trying to lead you to with my leading questions.
Well, it's another beginning, obviously. Is
the beginnings.
But
Yes.
Yeah.
This is, I believe, the reason that Luke is using the story of Abram and Sarai as parallel to this is because it is supposed to invoke the everything is about to change. Absolutely everything that we understand about how to relate to God and who God is and what it means to be a follower of God, everything's about to change. In the same way that Abram and the story of Abram was that new, completely different beginning.
Okay, so let me connect to you, disgusting. The dog is licking her foot. I'm not calling her disgusting.
Hi, Jonah.
So, if we tie this into The Bachelor...
Oh.
What?
She all of a sudden she perks up.
Oh, I'm awake. I'm awake.
Yeah.
What's
talking about all this boring history bullshit?
I mean, you didn't have to take the words out of my mouth.
So the fun, pivotal parts of The Bachelor or Bachelorette is somebody's mad at someone and I want to see what happens.
I'm sorry, you were saying The Bachelor is fun?
It can be fun at times.
It is fun to certain people, for sure.
Correct. God, I've lost it. Here it is. Okay. So the most fun pivotal parts of the show are there's drama happening.
Yeah, the drama.
Right. It's rooted in this. Something's about to change here. Either the protagonist.
This has the potential to change everything.
Right.
This is the most dramatic story yet.
Yeah. This person's getting kicked off, or they have some kind of weird relationship on the side.
How dare you kick off Jessica?
Yeah.
How dare you?
Yeah. So it's this story-based, again, parallel to the Abram Sarai thing of something's about to change. It's story-worthy. It's worthy to be spoke over campfires about because it's fucking crazy. Something nuts is about to happen, and none of you know about it.
Yeah.
So keep going because it's definitely going to happen. And if it's not you, it's going to be someone else.
I can see the preview now.
Of what?
Like the
Do.
Yeah.
This week.
I had a good one.
You'll never believe what Zechariah says to the angel of the Lord. And then a clip of Gabriel being like, I am Gabriel. I have sat in the presence of the Lord. And then being like, and then just a bunch of cuts of Zechariah being like, dun 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 dun. That's my pitch.
That ties into another point that we can go into a rabbit hole about. But I want to see where you're wanting to go with this, with the whole beginnings thing and starting that conversation too.
My major, I mean, like, it's all up for interpretation. So my interpretation is not the end all be all. So I want to share my interpretation because I've studied it, and it comes with a little bit of weight of like being familiar with the text. Like, to me, what this seems to be doing is intentionally hearkening back to the original covenant that God made with humanity. And like, it's intentionally paralleling that because what Luke's trying to get at is this is the beginning of a new covenant. This is a new beginning of a new way. In the same way that, because we talked a lot about Old Testament stuff, about the gods are petty. They live far away. They only care enough about humans and as much as they can entertain them or
they're apathetic.
Adore them or
There's
whatever.
nothing, yeah.
And it was a radical new message that there was this God who was actually going to stay true to his covenant with people, even when people failed to stay true to their end of the bargain. Like when Abraham and Sarai completely fail to trust God, God responds with grace, not only to them, but to the progeny that they kind of like fucked over by all of their, complete and total debauchery, like they completely screwed over their own children. And yet God remains faithful to those children and to them, despite the fact that that was a radical, amazing new idea that a God would treat people that way. That a God would be gracious even when people had completely proven that they didn't deserve it. In the same way, this is just equally as radical. Hey, the way that we understand God, this like stay true to the covenant, be obedient, follow the rules, follow the law.
Wrap a rope around your freaking leg
Right.
and wait for yourself to die? Like,
Yes.
whoa.
And he you're getting into the next place. Like, of all the places Luke he chooses a priest, and not just a priest, but a priest from the line of fucking priests, like the priest of the priest guy, There's something going on here about I was hinting at subversion. The subversion comes in two ways. He's using a priest and he's reversed the gender roles. In the original story, it was Sarai who was unfaithful.
Yep.
Oh.
And in this story, like he's subverting the hierarchy and the authority and the power and the knowledge. And I think it's a bit strong to read like modern day gender identity politics into that. I don't think that's what he was trying to do. Instead, what I think he's trying to do is undermine this like Pharisaical, follow the rules, archetypal, like this hierarchy he's trying to undermine that idea with the subversion of this. So he starts with something that people expect, a pattern that people know, and then he does something different with the pattern. That difference matters. He's saying something with the difference of the pattern, And I think that's it. I think it's about...
I mean, it's a running trope, and it's all through history, too. It's what happens. It's why Martin Luther is one of my favorite people of all time, and it's why have been a Lutheran my whole life. I don't know if whatever. But the whole stick it to the man thing of, this isn't fair for all of us, and I am literally here watching it.
Hang on a minute.
Yeah. Clink, clink, clink. Is there 99?
It's another Eddie Izzard bit. Except it was in German.
Right.
I'm the Newton bit.
Yeah. But this running trope of, when did we get here type of feeling where you're just going, and someone finally throws a wrench into the machine works and says, what are we doing? Hey, what is this? Why are these different from these? And why are people separate? And why are there hierarchy? Why are there levels again?
Why are we so obsessed with all of this seeming bullshit
when did it come back is what keeps hitting my head. Like, when did this come back? Why is this coming back? Why are we doing this again and again and again? And
human condition.
Correct. That's what I'm getting at, is this human condition thing of, And it's a running trope to Martin Luther King, to this whole, we did the levels thing again, guys. We got to stop. We have to. Well, we'll stop this time for 20 years, 21 year. All right, we're back to levels again. What's going on here? There's got to be a hierarchy or no one follows the rules.
Yeah.
Like, why do we need to follow the rules? Well, that's what I'm getting at.
And I would say, so, all right, so there's some political language in there that can be a little distracting from what I think is actually being said. Politically, don't get me wrong, I actually believe in hierarchy. I'm okay with it. And not only okay with it, we absolutely need hierarchy.
On a statesman level, yes.
But I mean it in the very basest of ways. I don't mean it in a controlling, oppressive way. So when I say it, what I'm talking about is like you showed up to do this. Like, we're getting paid to do this. So even that's a hierarchy in itself. However, I would say I would be doing this even if I was selling insurance somewhere. Like, I just can't help myself. So there's something that I'm attributing to this work that is valuable. Like, that's a hierarchy. I value this over not doing this. You are not getting paid. You're literally a volunteer. You show up to do this because you believe that there's something valuable about doing this rather than not. That's an important hierarchy that we need to understand. So I'm not saying, like, let's throw out all hierarchical whatever.
Oh, no, we're just using the same word for different.
But, like, when you get into oppression, when you get into people who long to control other people's behavior for the sake of, like, self-benefit, self-affirmation, self-wealth, that's when we get into real problems, and that's what the Pharisees were doing. That's what the Romans were doing. That's the context that all of this radical gospel message takes root in. It is in an oppressive. So, like, I don't want to throw out, because I'm in the business of getting babies out of bathwater, I don't want to throw out the notion of hierarchy. We need hierarchy to understand our reality.
On a governmental, statesman, lawful
but this
level.
idea that the government shouldn't be for the people is fucking ridiculous, And we should absolutely, like, my hierarchy says that's the shit we have to absolutely fight against.
Yeah.
And that comes from the gospel.
It's a thin line of a separation of a hierarchy of values and a hierarchy of state and a hierarchy of law and a hierarchy of, there's different levels to the levels themselves, the types. I have a perfect example. The Stanford Experiment, where 30, yes, the Stanford Prison Experiment. Have you heard about this?
I think so.
There's a movie about it with Forrest Whitaker. Oh, you don't like movies. Anyway, it's freaky. I think I'll say 20 people. 20 people go in, and the what's the C word they use in experiments? The
control.
No, that word. But the Confederate. The Confederate speaks to them as the guy in the lab coat that's like, we're doing an experiment, guys.
He's actually an actor. He's deceiving the subjects.
Right, but that's the Confederacy. That's I'm here. You guys believe we're doing an experiment. So he goes straight up. 10 of you are going to be in the prison cell, and 10 of you are going to be guards on the outside of the prison cell. And
the numbers are off. I don't know what the numbers are, but
I'm saying random numbers. It's the variable, another experiment word. But after a week, I think it was less than a week actually, but
they shut the experiment down before it could complete because it got so bad.
Because it proved their point. What they wanted to find out.
The guards became sociopathic. Because, and like, there's no actual difference between the two populations.
You were all hired the same exact way.
It's blind random who gets what, who gets assigned.
Yep.
But they gave the guards like certain things, like they gave them uniforms and badges. And they made the prisoners wear uniforms, like prison uniform. So they did differentiate after they were randomly selected. And the idea, we like to believe that people would be noble and good and that only a few people are like serial killer sociopaths. And yet that experiment had to be shut down because the guards were being so overtly physically abusive, verbally and emotionally abusive to the prisoners, quote unquote prisoners.
Right. To normal people like themselves.
Yeah, it was a mind fuck.
Crazy.
Yeah, and the movie like Hollywoodizes it, and at the end of the experiment, they strip the guards of their uniforms and stuff and say, "Get out of here, go. This experiment has ended," and they walk out like,
And they don't know how to readdress,
what just
how
happened.
do I re-enter society? And what the hell was that?
Yep.
And
short experiment, like a week or two, maybe.
Yeah.
And even like 2 or 3 days in, it's already starting to split, and the prisoners are like, guys, this is an experiment, please. Like, they're trying to figure something out. Can we just not? And
the guards now have to deal with, oh shit, that's inside of me. The prisoners have to deal with, why did I let that happen to me? Like, there's all kinds of things. That's why they ended it early, because it was becoming unethical. They were like, they never expected it to do that. And like, human condition, man.
Right.
We constantly find ourselves falling back into this need to control, need to divide, need to separate. And like, I don't know. I don't even know why we're talking about this. Not that this has any complete and total relevance to our current like political and cultural.
Not
It doesn't relate at all.
Definitely doesn't.
I don't know what to do. I mean, like, the best thing I can think to do is to constantly proclaim this message of grace. It's it's so weird because it is simultaneously so simple and simultaneously utterly baffling to everyone.
Well, I think that's what it is. I think the biggest problem is the overthinking. Is it really this simple, or am I making it simple and everyone else has it figured out?
I think that's a problem, but I also think another problem is listening to respond instead of listening to understand when somebody is talking that's different from you.
Or listening to answer.
Yeah, that's what I mean by respond.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So like,
there's synonyms, but whatever.
Sure. I just put those together because I'm stupid.
Yeah. So like, if you're talking,
yes.
I'm listening to like dot 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 instead of just listening to like genuinely listen and understand. And like, people get so caught up in what they have to say that they don't.
So
right.
I want to think about when you felt that way. What is actually going on? Like, what are you feeling when it's hard to listen to somebody to just accept what they're saying rather than feeling the need to respond? Because that happens to me a lot. Like, it's not an
I know it does.
circumstance.
And that's one of your best attributes because it's hilarious. Because I see you like, I'm like, here he goes.
I struggle with it for sure.
Right. And I'm saying hilarious in a
some of
in a
it's
fun way.
because I process quicker. When it comes innocently, then most people are okay kind of being gracious with me. But like, let's not ignore the very nefarious and dangerous parts of me.
Right.
That when it doesn't come innocently, it comes because I'm genuinely like shut the fuck up right now. I'm going to talk.
Well, it also doesn't help your
know?
case that you're a teacher in some parts. You have a professing vibe. Is the wrong word.
Well, I talk a lot. Yeah, I process out loud.
Not even that. The whole pastorship, role.
And
when we
there's
get
authority that's inherent in my position.
But it's an authority in a value of something you valued more than others that made you a pastor. Versus,
Well, I would also say that the authority of the pastor is ultimately the only reason a pastor is supposed to have authority is to serve whoever's in front of him or her. Mm-hmm. Like, that is and the minute it doesn't do that is the minute that pastor is supposed to have the ethical and moral wherewithal, the humility to abandon that authority. And that, we're talking ideal worlds, and like, we do not live in an ideal world, and I am certainly not an ideal pastor.
Well, in a capitalistic business structure, if you abandon a ship and no one's there to fill in the role, the ship usually sinks.
Well, okay, but I don't want to get too far. I want to go back to the heart part of it. What is happening in your hearts when you find yourselves in that position? Listening to respond and like get at and win, rather than really trying to understand and be with someone.
For me, it doesn't happen a lot. I like to think that I'm pretty good at listening just to listen. But I absolutely do use listening to respond as a defense mechanism. I channel a big type 8 and stressed as a type 2. which means that I take...
That's Enneagram stuff.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm good.
It's how I understand the world.
I'm good.
Well, but people who don't know what type 2 and 8 means.
Yeah. So as in the Enneagram world, you have your core motivation, and then you also have arrows of integration, arrows of disintegration. So when I'm stressed, I'm channeling my arrow of disintegration, which means I'm channeling personality types of a type 8. Anyway.
I understood all of that.
Type 8 is?
A type 8 is the challenger.
And the core motivation is?
To protect, to not be betrayed.
I know some shit.
Look at you, you got it. So, like for me, when I'm listening to respond, it typically is going to come out of a place where I feel like I'm being attacked, or where I feel like I can't set boundaries, because as a type 2, as the helper.
So how does that feel?
Frustrating, because for me, like I feel like I give and give and give and give and give, and if I don't get defensive and I don't set those boundaries and I don't respond, then I'm just going to give in to whatever XYZ wants.
So it's like you're going to lose yourself.
Right, because
you're
that's...
You're going to be destroyed, kind
yes,
of. I mean, like metaphorically.
That's kind of how it feels sometimes.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I'm looking for, like how it feels.
I'll withdraw and go along with whatever it is that you want to go with, even if I disagree with it, because it's easier than fighting about it. So when I get into those places of I need to respond, it's a defense mechanism of me trying to aggressively set a boundary that I know that I'm not going to be able to set if I let up a little bit.
See, I really identify when I get into what I'm getting at. I think that that's a common human experience. Mm-hmm. I mean, like you have more color around your personal experience because I think because Enneagram helps you like understand yourself better. But I would say I feel very similar. Whenever I find myself in positions where where I know I'm not really listening, I'm combative and I'm like jumping in and like, well, that's not right to say because. Mm-hmm. And that and it's difficult because I'm actually really good at it verbally.
Right.
It doesn't ever work.
I feel like I'm not good at it verbally.
And that's
I'm like a little chihuahua.
That's actually one of my big problems is because I think that I've won the argument when in fact all I've done is made things so much worse. Right. Because it's not that I won the argument, it's that I just happen to be quicker on my feet and better at processing out loud.
Right.
And the other person certainly may have incredibly valid points that could be articulated, but I'm not willing to wait for them. I haven't made space for them, and I have,
But if I can,
I'm like performing for an imaginary audience that I think is on my side.
Yeah, because you need to be seen.
Right.
And you channel type 2 in stress.
But
which means you become needy and desperate.
Well, and it all comes down to that like self-protection. It all comes. It's a similar motivation to what you just described. I do it when I don't feel like, if I just literally sat there and listened and didn't say anything, that the other person would then assume power over me and I would disappear and I would not.
Yeah, they wouldn't see you.
Well, it's helplessness. Yeah.
So it's like that. It's the self-preservation kind of mentality.
Yeah. Well, from a broader scope, it could be a tribalistic thing too. Of I'm getting my point across.
Yeah, but I'm not interested in that. I want to know how you feel when you do that.
Yeah,
that's how I feel.
Preston, we want to know how you feel.
Just because I've worked on it, now it's better. I'll go back to a darker time though. If I have a point that needs to get across because I came from a big family where sometimes your point doesn't get across because you're overwhelmed by others' points and you can't get you just have to jest in, and it's out of frustration and anger and nobody's listening. It's really coming from nobody's listening to me. I feel lonely. I'm not being seen. It's all this
like type 9, type 9 piece.
Well,
no. But even that,
though,
but it's the same.
It's the biggest fear of a human is feeling low. Even if you're in an alone space, but you have someone to go to, is not lonely. Lonely is I don't know if I have someone to go to, and I am seriously alone here. And if I were to be heard, or if I were to do this or whatever, I have no one there. And just leave it at that. Drop a pin.
Well, so here's the gospel truth. We worship a God who won by dying. Like, we worship a God who saved the world by dying. And, like, who brought life through death. And, like, that's the ultimate invitation of following this Jesus person, this God-man, you know? It's an invitation not to conquer, but to surrender, you know? And not to, like, kill, but to be destroyed, and in that find life.
I want to be clear here too. Surrender doesn't necessarily mean align either.
Not agree.
Right.
You don't have to cooperate with things that are harmful or bad, but they're like, I think that's a well-made point. Like, that's an important distinction. I think it's because I don't want to invite anybody who's being abused to cooperate with their abuse. Like, no. Nobody should be abused. Nobody should be harmed. And whether that abuse is physical or sexual or emotional, like, no. That it's not about, like, oh, just allow yourself. But there's something too in our defensiveness or in our fear of being invisible or destroyed or whatever. There's something in the power of dying to that and just allowing yourself to be, I'm going to let my point or whatever just be destroyed and go away.
Yeah. Whenever you bring it up, I always want to go, what dies? What dies? What dies? Your ideas die? Does your physical body die? Does this die?
Yeah, obviously not a literal death.
No.
But
I know
the metaphor of.
I know where you're getting at, but you always say surrender to, and then we go into some other thing, and we're like, yeah, we're on the same page here. But I imagine someone who's watching or listening goes, okay, surrender to someone taking a left and a right lane. What?
Right. Well, so one small example is like dying to your point. Like, let your point go away. And just let and actively make space for the other person to make their point, and really actively use all of your mind and all of your energy to get in their boat with them to understand what happened.
Not in a sense of surrender yourself and then you're done, your sacrifice has been made and now they're just going to do what they do. You've got to surrender and then replace with an avid listener, replaced with someone who's heartfelt, or replaced with a response.
The ultimate form of the death in that scenario
Correct.
Is actively bringing yourself on their side into listening to them, trying to help them articulate what they need, you know, and abandoning your own point, abandoning your argument in that, and letting, and like in my experience, when I've been able to do that, which is not I wouldn't even say not even often, like it's like, which happens occasionally when I can get to that level of like Christ-like kind of like, you know, the person I'm supposed to be. I think when that happens, it is miraculous. It changes things. It really changes the dynamic. It changes my understanding of the other person. It changes how I feel about what's going on. Like, it has the power to really bring about life. And that's one small practice that can help us to get into those spaces. Like, and it has broader ramifications, I think, but doing that actually is a really good way for us to train our brains and our hearts to be more cooperative with the grace that is present in every moment. Because that's what I believe, as a United Methodist in particular, as a Wesleyan Christian, grace is the thing for me. Like, the idea that you can't earn it, you don't have to earn it. It is. Your love and acceptance is. And you're going to fuck that up in so many possible ways, and it doesn't change it even a little bit.
Right.
It is. It just is. It's the undergirding nature of reality. Grace. Grace abounds. Period. Then, everything that happens after is a response to grace. Mm-hmm. And it's not earning your way in. It's not, I have to eradicate my sins. I have to make up for my... No. Fuck that. You're in. You are in. God just radically, devastatingly loves you. Just in a way that's immeasurable. And everything you do is in response to that. And sometimes it's really terrifying, and so the response is to reject it. And that's a normal human response that a lot of people do.
Response, no pun intended. That's
Yeah.
why we're just. So there's a quote floating around, and I don't know who said it. Somebody coined me on this, but if you had something good to say, it'll come out later. That's the feeling of the quote. But it's this whole
right. If you forgot it, it probably wasn't worth remembering.
Correct.
And if it's worth it, you'll find it again.
That whole thing. Sure, you'll find it a week later. It doesn't matter. Text it to that person, whatever. But be in the conversation for the first part. Someone's talking to you for a reason.
Yeah.
Someone's feeling something or
like just a minute ago.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up here.
okay. Patreon.
Yeah. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen.